You know, looking back over the last year, it's really been a pretty extraordinary year. And at Gen, we are just so blessed with you, our community. Together, we've had some pretty exponential growth. You know, we appointed a managing director for a nation, on average, more than one new managing director a week. We have 75 new managing directors over the course of the last 12 months. So could they please stand up, some of our managing directors? There's some other pretty amazing things that happened this year, the last year since we met since we met 12 months ago. 22 on Sloan. And you know what? I don't normally play videos, but I'm going to play a video this morning because this is pretty exceptional. And I'll tell you why it's exceptional. Before I play the video, I want to tell you why it's exceptional. Because this was about one of the Gen managing directors saying, I have a vision, and that is that I want my country to be a strong entrepreneurial ecosystem like no other. And that individual set about building a team, set about figuring out how do I get the GC to come to my country. That individual said about how do I build relationship with the right leadership of my country, both in the public and private sector. And how do I come up with what are the most important gaps in the ecosystem that I can fill? What are the problems we're actually going to solve in our ecosystem? And the extraordinary thing is we often do those vision-making exercises. In fact, we're going to spend a lot of time on it this afternoon. But being able to execute in a short period of time in this era of unpredictable, very fast pace of change is pretty extraordinary. And so I want to play this video today because Kazito and his team in South Africa and the leadership of the South African team at the Global Entrepreneurship Congress, we identified 4 things that came out of there that we needed to get done. And guess what? They all 4 got done, and this was one of them. And I said, you're going to be kidding. We're not going to be able to go out there. We wanted to find places on Thursday of the Global Entrepreneurship Congress last year where you guys could go around Johannesburg and could have our meetings. We're going to do that this year. I mean, there's plenty of them in Istanbul, okay? We're going to have our meetings on the ground in the communities on Thursday. However, we couldn't find them in Johannesburg. So you know what? We all hustled and we all sort of gathered on in the hotel. Well, we said we got to fix that, and this is what we did. 9 months later, this is what you'll see. So you can play the video.
We're now officially going to launch 22 on Sloan. So Richard Branson.
This is going to be Africa's center of entrepreneurial dynamics. Unleash your ideas! Woo!
You've got to do the hard graft first to be able to get into a position ready to make a difference.
Get up, stand up, and do things for themselves.
It's going to spawn lots of little virgins that will one day come and compete with us, and we're going to be wondering, why did you ever start this?
I believe that 22 on Sloan is for everyone and anyone.
I'd like the South African delegation to stand up if you could, just for a minute. Anybody here to stand up? Minister Zulu was here for the ministerial yesterday, and I believe maybe here, but if not, he'll be joining us in a few minutes. And the great thing about this is all the media came up to me and they're like, oh, another thing where the government, decided they want to do something and they slopped money down and they did it. And I'm like, I'm sorry, I don't understand. And they're like, well, we assume this is a government project. It must be the province of Gauteng, or it must be, the national government. No. This was a group of entrepreneurs that said, we're going to do this, and we're going to take the risk. And do you know what the minister told me yesterday? She said, isn't it great that I'm following them? She said, yeah, we've actually put some funding into that now. But she said, we did it 6 months after they did it. They didn't do it contingent upon any public sector investment. Awesome example of what it takes to fill the ecosystem and pull the right pieces together and find the resources. So, and Kazito, who put it together, we'll talk more about this later, but he's actually just got married yesterday, so he's not here. So he sends his apologies. He's really actually producing. All right. So we've had some other really amazing exponential things happen this year. We're thinking really much bigger on data. We're looking at, from the perspective of whether we're looking at what we're doing on data with blockchain. We're thinking bigger in all sorts of new ways, in terms of, for example, our new Gen Space Initiative. And I know we have at least one astronaut who shuttled a shuttle pilot here sitting right in front of me as part of our new Gen Space Initiative. So we're thinking even out of Earth. We're trying to really be exponential. We're trying to think, I guess even past lower Earth orbit. Is that right? Okay, right. We've had some great new programs and toolkits. One of the things that I am most excited about is we've developed new toolkits around policy hacking. You'll learn more about this later, but done in conjunction with the government of Estonia, and ways that we can figure out how we're going to enable more governments to figure out how to tackle, and more private sector on how to tackle all of these new mounting regulatory issues in every industry there is erupting as a result of the disruption of regulated industries. We've seen a whole number of a whole new amount of interest in Startup Huddle, a program that's based upon the DNA of the Kauffman Foundation's 1 Million Cups, that we figured out how do you build community. We looked at lots of different models, and I know we have a lot of, actually I think we've got a lot of 1 Million Cups people here from the United States. If you're here, stand up. They may be actually gracious enough to be next door in the overflow room, but I think they're over. Well, put those guys. Oh, there you are. Good morning. And there's going to be new things coming along the pipeline. But this year we've also had some great new partnerships. You'll see this week with GIST, the Global Innovation Science and Technology Awards. You'll meet those awesome teams. We've got new foundations that we're working with, like NIST. And of course, we're very proud of our ever-deepening and widening partnership with the team of former Kauffman guys who went over and joined up with JF and have formed Startup Genome, and we'll learn more about that coming up. We've also had lots of new areas of emphasis, and probably the biggest two that stick out to me over the last year is really the notion of inclusivity. More and more work, particularly driven by the Kauffman Foundation, has taught us that we have a lot of gaps, and we're missing an awful amount of opportunity as a result of not just the lack of attention to bringing more women into the entrepreneurial ecosystems, and women into venture capital, women into startup founders and scale-ups. It's the fact that it's all types of diversity that we're trying to look for. And we feel at Gen that if there's one thing we should be able to contribute towards, it's diversity. If you look around this room, I hope you see as diverse a group as you could imagine. Every culture, every creed, every color, every nationality, every age. And if anybody wants to tell me that we are missing anyone, please do. I will get on a plane and go meet them and ask them if they'll be part of our family. We've also had some great big events, and we were very honored to be asked once again by the government. Jen was part of with the Kauffman Foundation of getting a global entrepreneurship summit together, where the United States government decided it would get out of the United States and go and do entrepreneurship at the highest levels of government. And we did that for many, many years under President Obama's leadership. And as a result of the interest of the government of India, led by Mr. Kant sitting right in front of me, we ended up partnering we're the implementing partner of the Global Entrepreneurship Summit with the government of India and the government of the United States. And we also had some fantastic GC pluses. You all know TED. We have our own TEDx, our GC plus, where you guys can license the idea of doing an event where we try to tap you into a specific subsection of the community that you want to be able to invite and come as part of your event. And then, I want a special shout out to the Startup Nation Summit teams. We did a really extraordinary event in Estonia. Very important event because we really moved the ball forward in a whole range of different ways in terms of how we're engaging government, how we're helping government to be able to be a more intelligent partner of non-government within the ecosystems. We're working in some really interesting places. We have a very big delegation from Russia here, for example. We're working in 15 mid-tier cities in Russia. We are working... I needed one Russian in the audience to get... Oh, you want 3, okay. So they're really doing a great job. And we're also this year getting to work in Iraq. We're working with the UN and the State Department in building out our global entrepreneurship registration platform, which is kind of a funny story, because basically the way this platform works is we go into a country, and with the help of the government, we get them to give us everything they have on how do you register and manage running a business. And we put all that online so that you guys can then have a way of being able to make it easier for entrepreneurs to be able to get access to what they need. Well, the funny thing is when you go into Iraq and you sit down, you say, can you give it to me? And they go, we really don't know where it is. You might have to go over there to get a piece of it, and it's in this drawer, and it's on that computer. And so actually we're literally pulling together all the pieces and actually creating an understanding of what the regulatory environment is in places like that. We've got great new continental collaborations that we've done. These are all things that you've done this year, and I want to take a moment, this pausing moment, to say this is what you've accomplished. We've seen the rise of Gen Africa. A real sense coming out of the last Congress was that Africa is only good as Africa can be Africa, and every one of the government leaders that participated there said it's not about South Africa, it's not about Nigeria, it's about Africa. And so we formed Gen Africa, and it's very much a spirit of this campus that opened, that it's really, its efforts are to reach out to Africans across the continent and not just in South Africa. And then, of course, we've seen the emergence of Gen Asia as a collection of Asian countries that are coming together to look at specific regional issues in entrepreneurship. And we've had many, many new connections. You know, last year I stood up here and I said, we've got plenty of, it's so funny, we keep track of all the GEW marriages. We keep track of all the marriages, the babies. And last year, 2 parents, and my wife wouldn't have let this happen, but they let me carry one of our Gen babies up here last year for anybody this year. But I also, she's going to be really cross at me afterwards for doing this, but one of the other things that happened at one of the GECs is that one of our most important people on our team, if not the most important, Buke Kudar, met someone at the GEC, not last year, but the previous GEC, and I'm pleased to say that that connection got made this year, and actually they just got married, so congratulations. Wow. You're probably going to be embarrassed that I said that, but we like to look at connections in lots of different lights. And talking about sort of marriages and birthdays and otherwise, many of you know that for the last 10 years, my family has been upset at me because I've always had my birthday at the Global Entrepreneurship Congress. But we do still have a birthday, even though we moved it. We moved it because we wanted to have your birthday party. Because today is your birthday. It's your birthday. And today is the 10th anniversary of us beginning this. You're Jen, and you're 10. 10 years ago, an idea was born in the Ewing Marion Kaufman Foundation to figure out a way of how we're going to inspire more citizens to consider the path of entrepreneurship. And we weren't just focused on a global notion. In fact, at the time, we were still thinking about the fact that the passion about entrepreneurship, even in the United States, was very limited to certain communities and certain cities. And we figured out, what if we could do this? But then we had an exponential idea. What if we could do it globally? And it was based upon this central notion that the world needs more entrepreneurs. We need it for value creation, for economic growth, for education, for jobs, whatever your goal. As Dan Eisenberg will always remind us, can we make sure that we know what we're trying to achieve before we start? And we called it Global Entrepreneurship Week. It wasn't complicated. We wanted to light the candle in more people where talent was plentiful, but opportunity was not. And we had a lot of help from a lot of friends. We've had some very well-known brands and faces. You know, Richard Branson, for example, has just been a constant supporter. He's been extraordinarily supportive, you know, right from the first day. We've had the support of many heads of state. 40 or 50 heads of state have said they're passionate about this. And you'll see today that, you know, it's hard for us now to go anywhere without a head of state. I think a head of state participated in every one of the events we did this year. So we have this extraordinary situation, but where were we 10 years ago and what did we do? Well, of course, you know, this was the kind of more typical headline 10 years ago, which was stock markets collapsed, we had a global recession, and the startup revolution was barely nascent. There was no startup weekends. There was no discussions about startup ecosystems. That was still just a word dedicated to our discussions about our environment. And the word startup was barely used. In fact, you know, we didn't have a very complicated idea. We wanted to have a communications campaign with a simple goal of getting more people to consider the path of entrepreneurship. But we did not know you then. And we met you. And you guys did something much bigger. What we inadvertently set in motion was not just a campaign, but a chain reaction that's taken us to where we are here today. The decision to be global on day one drove a razor-sharp focus on catalyzing communities and partnerships. And we still measure to this day the proportional number of GW partnerships that we create. And in fact, you'll see tonight, we recognize the people that have catalyzed the most number of partners. But what we really set in motion were decentralized but connected communities, all guided by this common compass. You guys probably think, why do these guys have these compasses all the time? Has everybody got their compass, by the way? Yep. All right. If you didn't get one, you're supposed to get one every time you show up. Ask for your compass. This compass is, it's your solidarity statement for the entrepreneurs, the doers, the makers of things. It's your solidarity statement for the fact that we can still be global. And it's your way of saying that it's okay to be part of a global community still. And so we hope that you'll wear that with pride. It's not about a brand, it's about a message. So a number of you were there in the room in 2008. How many of you were there when we launched Global Entrepreneurship Week? Anybody want to stand up because they were there? I know there's a many of you, but maybe you guys got out of bed just 5 minutes later than the people sitting in this room and you're sitting next door. So I don't know who's there. We have at least one here. I know we have many. Where's Angelo? I was just chatting with him. There we are, from Bermuda. Okay, from the UK. Of course, it was, there's Angelo. Thank you. Wasn't it great that on day one we had Venezuela involved? So 10 years of GW serving 10 million participants every November, the 10th Global Entrepreneurship Congress here today, they're all core to what we do. We pretty much had an average team size of the global staff level of about 10. So you are 10, and I want to say happy birthday. All right, so let's fast forward to 2018. Well, how the world has changed. It's exponentially different. What do we see? Well, first of all, we see disruption. That's got nothing to do with jet. That's just this disruption. We also see unpredictability. We see strong global growth, prolonged expansion, rising VC investments, all positive developments at the price of bigger gaps and anticipation in our ecosystems that need more diversity and inclusion. And the fourth thing I see is fear. Fear and the rising populism and nationalism. But if you fast forward 10 with Jen in 2018, here is what we think the power of Jen is in responding to these strong trends. First of all, we observe the disruption and the exponential growth. But at Jen, our strategy has been not technology, but curated connectivity. Last year's Global Startup Ecosystem report, released by Startup Genome and Gen, showed how global connectedness enhances startup growth and ecosystem performance. And in fact, in this year's findings that will be released tomorrow, you will learn that it's not just global connectedness, but local connectedness, according to the analysis that JF and Dane and others will release tomorrow. We observed, secondly, this unpredictability, but the Gen strategy for responding to that in terms of creating more stability has not been in fighting rapid change, but in seeking stability through common aspiration. And that's important. What is this? People see what others want and they want it too. So how do you figure out, how do you create that sense of calm in a very unpredictable environment? And yes, we did observe strong global growth, but what we really observed was the implications of that. We observed gaps in those who participate in our ecosystem. Our answer is looking at this room. Our answer is diversity. Women, men, all religions, all political systems, all nationalities. And then finally, we observe fear and nationalism. I think you know that in the world right now, we see this every day. But what we feel that has been in our response as a collective community has been what I call distributed communities of trust. I mean, what do I mean by this expression, distributed communities of trust? It's really trust. Today, the world is abuzz about another kind of chain, the blockchain. The promise of the blockchain is to improve the efficiency of social systems radically by transcending human trust. And at Gen, we understand that, but we see another frontier in our shared future. We see a frontier is centered not on chains of transactions, but rather on chains of connections, on chains of ideas, on chains of events, and on chains of friendships as represented in this room today. And that is the evolutionary, connected vision of the future that we have at Gen in our sights, with one human trust, with human trust at its core. So while as a global community, much of what we do is in small groups or through digital communications, we've gathered face-to-face at least once a year. We've mined a great deal of trust, and we've never needed a graphics card to do it. And we've got trust among people whose nations are now too often distrustful of each other. You've gathered amid breakthrough peace agreements between the rebels and the government in Colombia when we were in Medellin. You gathered for the GC in Moscow as Obama and Putin stared down each other cold over Ukraine. And the trust in this community is as solid as a rock, and it's as perennial as the grass. You've earned this trust, and you must now use it. You are one global entrepreneurial ecosystem, and you do stand in stark contrast to the rising barriers and the closing of economic opportunity in so many places. And as Gen, yes, we are the original populists who try to make life better for everyone, not the few. We want to help the rest from all corners of the earth rise and engage. Empowered by the optimistic outlook of our customers, the aspiring and scaling entrepreneurs, the founders, the doers and makers things who are birthing the new and figuring out new ways of doing things and figuring out how to respond to this exponential uncertainty and change. So this is our future. We are Gen. And I think you're familiar with this chart. You are your national communities. You are the global research communities with the Global Entrepreneurship Research Network. You are the smarter governments and policymakers that assemble under the Startup Nations banner. You support entrepreneurs through all of these support programs. And like today at this GC, you connect. And you are built on the firm foundation of the communities that have celebrated GEW for these 10 years. This is our GEC, where we not only connect with each other, but you bring each other the knowledge, programs, playbooks, communities, and mentor capital to act with confidence and support. And you have us, your Gen Global team, inspired by the spirit of a man called Ewing Marion Kaufman. Yes, he was many of you know, a man that we constantly look at as being our true north. He was an entrepreneur who also looked recessions and unpredictability and uncertainty in the eye. He took risks. He believed in others. And inspired by him and supported by his foundation, we have ventured to the edge and we've peeked over. And the good news is, I want to tell you, despite what you read on your headlines every day, and your discouraging sense of, are we headed in the right direction as a world, our future is bright. Your future is bright, your future is Jen. And this week, we hope that you will learn that, engage that. You will see many new things happening and partnerships on the horizon, big plans for the future. And I hope that we will have new developments together in tackling this with this same sense of optimism. So let's talk about when we go to the edge and what do we see in the future. I want to move forward from 2018 as we wrap up and get into our discussion. So let me tell you a couple of things that we've got coming up. First of all, many of you come to us and say, okay, we're getting critical mass in our ecosystems. We need to connect with our other ecosystems. I'm very proud to announce today that we will be focusing a lot more intently on what we call Ecosystem Connect, bringing together ecosystem to ecosystem. I'd like to ask Bouquet and Yuval to stand up, please. So Yuval Yarden from the United States. Maybe she's left because I upset her about announcing her marriage. You're going to learn more about Ecosystem Connect. There is a global speed dating session on that with Ecosystem Connect set up for this week, and we're going to learn a little bit more about it this afternoon. Other things on the horizon. Startup Huddle. We're excited to say we have a great deal of confidence. We're going to ask each and every one of you to work with us in building local organizers in small and large communities in your countries. We believe in this concept of helping one entrepreneur at a time, once a week, and of doing it at the same time as you can build a sense of trust and community at the very local level. So this week, our call to action is for you to wear your national flag. I don't normally make that call to action. I normally call you and say, let's make sure that we work together as a global community. We're going to do that. But what am I asking you to do this week? Okay, and this annual meeting. What we're going to ask you to do is to be from your country. We're going to ask you to consider yourself as one of the many from each of your national delegations charged with a mission. We want you to use this event and the experience, knowledge, and resources it offers to take some steps in writing, in your efforts work, in writing, in helping your delegation develop a new vision. A vision for a better, healthier, and more diverse and more impactful national entrepreneurial ecosystem. So to do this, we're offering you several paths this week. First, both today and throughout the GC, you will have access to the people and programs that Gen Global and its global partners have assembled to help you. So first of all, we don't like to do this too often, but this afternoon, we're going to spend a couple of hours telling you, look, here's all the resources, tools, people, and programs that you've got at your disposal at the global level. But that's only a small piece of what you have to do when you get home with your ecosystem development work. But we want you to come together. What we are going to do, though, is conclude with today's session. After walking through those, we've taken some time both up here and in 6 other breakout sessions where you'll be breaking into different groups led by different individuals. We're going to spend our time working on precisely what is the next step for you to do, both in terms of how you map your way through this week, but in terms of how you work together as a national delegation this week in having actionable next steps to do when you get home. And when we outline all the ways that Gen Global and you and its partners have to help you, you may decide that you'll take some of it or none of it, but we ask you to be deliberate with your colleagues. We want you to use your expertise and your diverse perspectives and those of the other 170 delegations present here this week to examine a new path for your national ecosystem development work. And to help you do this, I've asked 6 experts to assist us in this effort. Experts that are very close to Jen, who will not be only just around this week, but will be around all year to be able to give you guidance and thought in trying to be able to do this. And in a moment, I'm going to ask them to come up onto the stage, and they're going to sit and listen to the conversation that we're about to have. But I do want to end, however, my initial preamble by saying thank you. Thank you on behalf of so many people that I think have been inspired and engaged and have felt listened to and have been able to take action in doing things at home. This is all, we are a global community, but it ultimately is about whether or not we've had an impact on the ground in your everyday efforts helping entrepreneurs. A big, big thank you, but a big, big call for help. A big call to help saying you've got to tell us what's working in your ecosystem, what's not working in your ecosystem. What is Jen doing that is useful, and what are we doing that's not useful? That could be on a strategic level, it could be on a tactical level. What are the things that we can do to be better listeners so that when I stand up here next year in Bahrain, I have a chance to be able to make sure that we are bringing even more things that you've asked for. So I want you to think about that, because we're all ears. It's not just this week, we're ears online, we're ears throughout the year, 24/7. We want to know what is it that we can do to be more helpful. We have a great thanks to you, thanks to the collective power of this community. We have a little cloud of a few organizations around the world who can do things for this. So we want to be helpful in trying to muster them and direct their views in the right direction.